This morning, the Princess of Wales back on the global stage. Kate's first international trip since her cancer recovery, stepping out on her own, a research trip of sorts, learning about a cause she cares deeply about.
Thousands of people have packed the square. People are hanging out the windows, and you can see her right here, meeting some of her littlest fans.
The Windsor Gala was meant to be a night of elegance, unity, and royal calm. Instead, it became the moment the palace could no longer hide the fracture inside its own walls. Princess Catherine entered with quiet grace, but when Camilla arrived, the room changed instantly. Within minutes, Catherine turned away from the gathering, walked past guests, and left Windsor behind in silence. Before we go deeper into what this really means for the royal family, make sure to subscribe so you don't miss a single update. Catherine arrived beside William with a calm that made people look twice. The Windsor Gala, a formal royal gathering held to project stability before donors, diplomats, and trusted palace guests, was supposed to prove the family could still stand as one. That was why the evening mattered. It was a message to the country that the crown remained steady, while tensions pulled at its foundations. William felt that pressure immediately. The prince watched his wife avoid the main entrance, and he knew she was not afraid. She was waiting. Camilla arrived late, and the delay carried meaning. The queen consort entered with attendants close behind her, not as a quiet guest, but as a woman determined to be seen. Catherine noticed her at once. The princess placed her glass down, turned toward William, and said only a few words. He froze. Then her face changed, not with anger, but with the pain of someone realizing a promise had been broken. Camilla kept moving forward, smiling with strength, but her eyes followed Catherine before the room understood why the air had gone cold. William looked from Camilla to Catherine, and that second became the test of the night. Protocol, the strict code of royal behavior that tells family members where to stand, when to speak, and how to protect appearances, demanded that he remain near the receiving line. Loyalty demanded something else. Catherine stepped away before any announcement could soften the moment. She crossed the threshold in silence, and Windsor seemed to lose its breath. The prince followed. He did not ask permission. He did not look back. Camilla saw him go, and the confidence around her cracked. Charles received the news in a whisper that cut through the ceremony like a blade. A senior aide leaned close to the king and told him Catherine had not left because of illness. She had left because Camilla arrived. The aide repeated the message when Charles did not answer, and the monarch's face hardened. This was no sudden emotional reaction. Catherine's walkout was the visible breaking point of a battle consuming everyone closest to the crown. Behind the glittering walls of Windsor, 4 people stood at the center of the storm, each carrying a different wound. Catherine carried restraint. William carried fury under discipline. Camilla carried pride sharpened by fear. Charles carried the burden of knowing that one woman's entrance had exposed the palace's most dangerous divide. What happened that night was not about seating, timing, or ceremony. It was about power, memory, and humiliation. Catherine had not wanted that evening to become another quiet test of her endurance. She had agreed to attend only after being assured that the Windsor Gala would not turn into a display of Camilla's influence. The gala mattered because it was meant to show donors, diplomats, and trusted guests that the family still knew how to stand together. It also mattered because every public royal gathering becomes a message, and this one was supposed to say the crown was calm. But Catherine knew calm could be used like a mask, and she had worn that mask too many times. William saw the strain before anyone else did. In a side chamber before the gala, Catherine adjusted her bracelet with hands that looked steady but carried the weight of everything unspoken. The prince watched her closely and asked, "Are you sure you want to do this?" She did not answer quickly. She looked down, breathed once, and said, "For the family, yes." That answer hurt him, because he knew exactly what it cost her. William had watched Catherine absorb pressure in public, while privately being asked to swallow one insult after another. Camilla stood on the other side of the evening with a different purpose. An aide told her that Catherine was already inside, and for one brief second, the queen consort paused. Then she continued with a controlled smile, because her arrival was not just an arrival. A royal ceremony is any formal event where the family's order, rank, and public image are carefully shown through timing, placement, and behavior. Camilla understood that better than anyone. She wanted the room to remember that she still belonged at the center of it. Charles understood the danger too late. The king had hoped the evening would protect the monarchy's image, because the monarchy depends not only on crowns and titles, but on the belief that its senior figures can rise above private wounds. Catherine's departure threatened that belief. It turned private pain into public proof. When William left after her, Charles did not see a husband simply following his wife. He saw the future king choosing loyalty over palace choreography. Camilla noticed it as well, and the pride in her face tightened. William had made his choice in front of everyone, and Charles knew the meaning would travel faster than any official explanation. The prince had not hesitated. Catherine had not returned. And the reason William moved so quickly traced back to one private incident the palace had tried desperately to bury. The walkout did not begin at the Windsor Gala. It began weeks earlier, behind closed doors, at a private dinner where one sentence changed the temperature of the royal family forever. Catherine had endured whispers before. She had endured protocol battles, cold smiles, and careful exclusions. But that evening, Camilla crossed a line that William never forgot, and Catherine never fully forgave. Catherine remembered the Sandringham winter dinner with painful clarity. Sandringham is one of the royal family's private country estates, a place often used for family gatherings away from the public eye, and that was why the dinner mattered so deeply. It was not a loud public event, where words could be blamed on pressure. It was private, it was controlled, it was personal. Camilla sat among selected family members and made the remark that would later haunt Windsor. Catherine was too emotional for future queenship. Catherine heard every word. She did not raise her voice. She did not defend herself in front of the table. She simply folded her napkin, lowered her eyes, and let the silence do what anger could not. William saw the movement. The prince knew that small gesture meant his wife had been wounded in a place she could not easily show. Camilla continued as though the sentence had been harmless, but the queen consort had already changed the night. She had turned a family dinner into a test of Catherine's place. William confronted Camilla after the dinner ended. The corridor was quiet, but his words were not. He told her Catherine would never again be used as a test of endurance for royal politics. Camilla stood firm and answered that the family needed strength, not sentiment. To her, emotion was weakness. To him, it was humanity. That difference mattered because the future king had watched Catherine carry the family's image through storms she never created, and he understood that strength was not the same as cruelty. Charles heard about the confrontation the next morning through a documented account prepared by a senior household aide. A household aide is a trusted palace staff member who manages private royal schedules, messages, and sensitive family matters. The king read the account, paused, and chose silence. That silence hurt Catherine more than Camilla's words. Charles wanted peace, but peace without truth felt like protection for the person who had caused the wound. Catherine later stood alone with William and removed her earrings without speaking. The prince waited, knowing she was fighting not to break. Then she said, "I can stand pressure, but I will not stand cruelty dressed as duty." William never forgot it. Catherine did not ask him to fight her battles, but he understood what she was really asking. Never let the palace turn pain into protocol again. Camilla's presence at the Windsor Gala was supposed to be handled quietly after that. Catherine agreed to attend only because she had been promised the queen consort's entrance would be discreet, controlled, and respectful. So when Camilla stepped into Windsor, as though nothing had happened, Catherine understood the promise had already been broken. The most powerful moment of the night did not happen in the ballroom. It happened beyond the music, beyond the cameras, in a corridor where royal silence finally cracked. Catherine had left the gala, but she had not disappeared. William caught up with her near a closed door, and moments later Camilla followed. What came next was the confrontation Windsor feared most. Catherine stopped before she reached the outer passage. Her breathing was careful, controlled, almost too calm, and one hand rested against the wall as though she needed the stone strength of Windsor itself to keep standing. William reached her seconds later, anger burning beneath every word he refused to shout. The prince asked if she wanted to leave the estate entirely, because the estate was not just a building, it was royal ground, a place where family pain could become public history in a single minute. Catherine looked at William, and that quiet look hurt more than tears. She did not seem broken. She seemed decided. That mattered because the palace had always survived by smoothing over wounds before anyone outside could name them. It also mattered because the future king now understood that this wound could not be smoothed over. The prince wanted to protect her from the room behind them, but Catherine had already protected herself by walking out of it. Camilla entered before the silence could settle. One aide followed close behind her, but William turned immediately and ordered the aide to step away. An aide is a trusted royal staff member who handles private messages, schedules, and sensitive moments, which made that command dangerous. It stripped away the usual buffer. Now there was no one to soften the words, no one to reshape the memory later, and no one to pretend this was only a misunderstanding. Catherine faced Camilla without raising her voice. "You knew what that dinner cost me," she said. The queen consort held her ground and answered that public duty could not bend around private hurt. For a moment, the old palace logic stood between them like a wall. Duty, silence, endurance. But William stepped forward, not to attack, not to perform, but to draw the line the family had avoided for too long. William told Camilla that duty did not give anyone permission to humiliate his wife. His words hit the corridor with the force of a verdict. The queen consort tried to keep her composure, but her confidence faltered when Catherine spoke again. She said she had not walked out to create a scene. She had walked out because staying would have made the insult acceptable. Camilla heard the difference, and for the first time that night, she had no quick reply. Charles appeared at the far end of the corridor just as the final words faded. The king saw William standing beside Catherine, not between both women, and that single detail told him everything. The prince had chosen where he stood. Catherine had chosen what she would no longer endure. Camilla had followed, but she had not controlled the moment. Now Charles had to decide whether to calm the room or confront the deeper truth Catherine's exit had revealed. Every royal crisis eventually becomes a question of power. Not the power written on paper, but the power revealed by who moves, who stays, who follows, and who is left standing alone. At Windsor, Catherine's walkout exposed something the palace had avoided saying aloud. The emotional center of the monarchy had shifted, and William was no longer willing to pretend otherwise. Charles retreated from the corridor with the weight of the night pressing against him. In a private sitting room, the king read a short written account prepared by a senior aide, then placed it down without speaking. A written account is a formal internal note used by palace staff to record sensitive events before an official explanation is shaped. That mattered because this note did not soften what happened. It confirmed that multiple guests had seen Catherine leave after Camilla arrived, and that meant the palace could no longer hide the walkout as a private misunderstanding. Charles looked shaken, because he understood the danger. The monarchy survives on control, and control depends on people believing the family can keep its pain behind closed doors. But Catherine had not vanished quietly. She had walked out in a room full of diplomats, donors, and trusted guests, who understood royal signals. Camilla's arrival had been noticed. William's decision to follow had been noticed. And now the king knew every person who saw it would carry the same question home. Had the future king just chosen his wife over the palace line? William was summoned soon after, but the prince did not rush back to repair the scene. He made his answer clear through a private message delivered by an aide. He would not return to the ballroom until Catherine's position was respected, and he would not support any official explanation that blamed her. An official explanation is the palace's public version of events, usually written to protect the family from scandal. This time, William refused to let that machine turn Catherine's pain into weakness. Camilla expected Charles to defend her. The queen consort believed her presence at the gala had been proper, and she waited for the king to say so. But she saw his hesitation. That pause frightened her more than anger would have. Charles was not simply weighing a wife against a daughter-in-law. He was weighing the present against the future, and the future had just followed Catherine out of the room. Charles made the decision quietly, but it changed everything. He instructed staff not to issue a statement saying Catherine was unwell. The king knew William would not stand behind a false explanation, and without the prince's support, any palace statement would collapse under its own weight. Camilla heard the instruction and understood the hidden message. Catherine's walkout would not be treated as inconvenience. It would be treated as dignity. Silence filled the room when Charles finally asked the question everyone feared. Who approved Camilla's arrival timing? No one answered at first. The aide lowered his eyes. Camilla went still. William's refusal had forced the palace to stop managing emotion and start investigating power. That single question turned the walkout from an emotional rupture into a palace investigation no one around Camilla wanted opened. The gala continued, but it no longer felt like a celebration. Music played. Glasses were lifted. Conversations resumed in careful fragments. Yet everyone inside Windsor knew the central figure of the evening was gone. Catherine's empty place became louder than any speech. William's absence became a message, and Camilla, still inside the room, began to understand that staying had not made her stronger. Guests tried to behave as though the night had not split open. They smiled too carefully, spoke too softly, and glanced too often toward the chair Catherine had left behind. The formal toast came next, a short ceremonial speech where the king was expected to thank the guests and remind everyone why the evening mattered. This moment mattered because the gala had been designed to show stability after weeks of tension. It also mattered because the absence of Catherine and William turned that message into something hollow before Charles even began. Charles lifted his glass, but warmth had vanished from his voice. The king avoided the word unity because everyone in the room could feel how false it would sound. One diplomat stopped clapping when he realized William was not returning to stand beside the monarch. That small pause carried more force than open protest. It told Charles the guests had understood the signal. Catherine's exit had not been hidden. The prince's absence had not been forgiven by silence. Camilla stood near the receiving line with a smile that worked harder every second. The queen consort held her clutch tightly as conversations around her became shorter and colder. People still bowed. People still spoke. But the easy respect had changed into careful distance. She had arrived wanting to prove she remained central to the room. Now, she was standing inside that same room, feeling how quickly power can turn into isolation when the person everyone is watching is no longer there. Sophie noticed the empty chair and lowered her gaze. The trusted confidant understood what others were only beginning to feel. Catherine had not walked out because she wanted attention. She had walked out because staying would have turned pain into performance. Sophie's silence mattered because she had spent years reading the hidden language of the family. She knew when a gesture was polite, when a smile was forced, and when a woman had finally reached the end of what she could carry. Camilla leaned toward an aide and asked whether Catherine had left Windsor entirely. The aide hesitated, then answered, "The prince is with her." That sentence struck harder than any public insult. It confirmed William had not returned to repair the damage. It confirmed he was not standing beside Charles to protect the evening's image. He was with Catherine, and everyone close enough to hear understood that the future king had chosen emotional truth over royal appearance. Charles saw Anne leave the ballroom quietly before Camilla could reach him. The king followed her movement with troubled eyes, because Anne did not move without purpose. The Princess Royal, a senior royal known for directness and duty, was not going after Catherine. She was going to Charles. By the time Anne reached the king, the crisis had moved beyond hurt feelings and into the question of what the family would tolerate next. The turning point came not through a palace statement, not through a formal order, and not through a staged display of unity. It came in a small private room where two people spoke, without aides, without witnesses, and without the weight of ceremony. Catherine and William faced each other after the walkout, and for the first time that night, the monarchy disappeared. Only a husband and wife remained. Catherine sat in silence away from the gala, no longer angry, but deeply wounded. William stood near the door as if the entire palace might try to enter, and ask her to perform calm one more time. The prince watched her carefully, knowing this moment mattered, because it was not about one entrance or one dinner anymore. It mattered, because Catherine had been asked to carry pain quietly for the sake of royal order, and this time she had refused. William stepped closer and told Catherine he should have stopped the situation earlier. The prince did not defend the palace. He did not soften Camilla's role. He simply admitted what guilt had already written across his face. Catherine looked at him and said the walkout was not weakness. It was the first honest thing that had happened all evening. That truth struck him harder than anger, because it showed him how long she had been holding herself together while everyone else called it duty. Catherine removed her gala gloves and placed them on the table. A gala is a formal evening event where the royal family appears before guests to show unity, support causes, and protect the crown's public image. That was why the gesture felt so powerful. Those gloves had belonged to the performance of the night. By setting them down, Catherine was setting down the idea that pain had to be worn politely so others could feel comfortable. William admitted that following her might cause a storm. Catherine answered quietly that the storm already existed. The walkout only let everyone see it. The prince understood then that this crisis was no longer something to manage with careful words. It was something to answer with courage. He had spent the night thinking like a future king. But in that room, he had to think like a husband first. Catherine did not ask William to punish Camilla. That restraint stunned him. The queen consort had wounded her, tested her, and arrived at Windsor as though the broken promise meant nothing. Still, Catherine asked for only one thing. She wanted no one to rewrite her dignity into palace inconvenience ever again. The prince heard the quiet force behind that request, and he knew it would shape every decision that followed. William reached for Catherine's hand, and for a moment the pressure outside the room fell away. He promised that the palace would not blame her, not in private, not in public, not through a polished explanation designed to protect everyone except the woman who had been hurt. Catherine believed him because he had already made his choice. He had left the room. He had followed her. The first image reached broadcasters before the palace could shape the story. Catherine leaving Windsor, William close behind. No speech, no denial, no controlled version ready in time. By morning, what had begun behind palace walls belonged to the world, and Windsor's silence was replaced by a national roar. The next morning, Britain did not wake to a palace explanation. It woke to one image: Catherine leaving Windsor with her face pale, her posture steady, and William just steps behind her. That single moment became the entire story. No speech could soften it. No briefing could bury it. The public saw a woman walking away from humiliation, and a future king choosing to walk with her. Catherine became the name on every front page before the palace had even settled on its first sentence. The Crown Ledger, ran the image under the headline, "The Walkout That Shook the Palace." A front page is the first and most important page of a newspaper, the place editors use when they believe a story has captured the country's attention. That mattered because Catherine's exit had crossed from private pain into national meaning. It also mattered because William's presence behind her turned the moment into something larger than gossip. It became loyalty made visible. William changed the story without saying a word. A morning broadcaster described the scene as not a royal tantrum, but a royal boundary, and the phrase spread because it gave people the language the palace refused to use. The prince had not remained inside to protect the image of unity. He had followed his wife, and that choice made the public see Catherine not as rebellious, but as dignified. She had not shouted. She had not performed outrage. She had simply left the room that asked too much of her. Crowds gathered outside Windsor Castle gates by midday. Windsor Castle is one of the monarchy's most important royal homes, used for major ceremonies, private family moments, and public symbols of continuity. That was why the gathering felt heavy. Some people held flowers for Catherine. Others stood quietly, watching the gates as if silence itself had become a message. The public was not reacting only to a dramatic exit. They were reacting to the feeling that a woman had finally refused to let suffering be dressed up as duty. Camilla felt the shift immediately. Commentators replayed the timing of her arrival again and again, then connected it to the Sandringham winter dinner, where her remark about Catherine being too emotional for future queenship had first turned private tension into a deeper wound. The queen consort had walked into Windsor expecting to prove she still mattered at the center of the room. Instead, the country began asking whether her arrival had exposed the very coldness the palace had tried to hide. Charles moved with caution, because every word now carried danger. The king authorized a restrained palace note, acknowledging that Catherine had left the gala early, but it did not call her unwell, and it did not blame her. A palace note is a short official message released to shape public understanding without revealing every private detail. This one mattered because its silence protected Catherine more than any denial could have. The monarch did not turn her pain into illness. He did not hand Camilla an easy defense. Catherine saw the front page privately, and for a long moment, she said nothing. William stood near her, watching the words settle across her face. The prince understood that she was not seeing victory. She was seeing proof. Proof that the public had understood what Windsor had tried to soften. Proof that walking away had not made her look weak. It had made her look honest, and that understanding gave the walkout its final meaning, not as scandal, but as a verdict on the monarchy's future. Catherine had not damaged the crown by leaving. She had reminded it that dignity matters more than choreography, and that the people watching could tell the difference. In the end, the Windsor Gala was remembered not for who arrived, but for who refused to remain. Catherine's walkout became more than a royal incident. It became a line drawn in silence, a moment when dignity overpowered choreography, and a future queen showed that endurance has limits. The monarchy did not collapse that night, but something inside it changed forever. Catherine's final position was painfully clear. She had not left because she was fragile. She had left because staying would have made disrespect look acceptable. That mattered, because the palace had spent years asking women to endure pressure quietly, then calling that silence strength. It also mattered because Catherine had shown a different kind of strength, one that did not shout, beg, or collapse. She simply refused to give her pain a polite smile for the comfort of others. William's choice gave that refusal its power. The prince followed Catherine not as a performance, but as a promise. He showed that the future of the crown would not be built on sacrificing his wife's dignity for appearances. The crown is the symbol of royal authority, meaning the duty, image, and future of the monarchy itself. For William, that future could no longer depend on pretending pain was loyalty. He had seen what silence cost Catherine, and this time he chose her over the room. Camilla faced the consequence of her own arrival. The queen consort had entered Windsor wanting to show presence, rank, and control. Instead, she revealed how isolated her influence had become when Catherine walked out and William followed. Camilla had wanted the room to turn toward her, but the moment she arrived, the room began measuring what her presence had done. That was the punishment no statement could soften. She stayed inside the gala, but the emotional power had already left with Catherine. Charles learned the hardest lesson of the night. The king understood that the palace could survive embarrassment more easily than moral cowardice. Embarrassment fades, but cowardice leaves a mark on everyone asked to suffer in silence. That truth mattered, because Charles had spent the crisis trying to protect the institution. Yet Catherine's walkout proved the institution could only be protected by facing what had gone wrong. The monarch had to choose honesty, even when honesty wounded the palace image. Catherine stood with William the next morning, when Charles entered the private room. The king paused before speaking, and for once, no aid softened the moment. No palace note shaped it. No ceremony hid it. He looked at Catherine and said simply, "You were right to leave." The words landed with quiet force. William looked at his wife, and Catherine did not smile at first. She simply absorbed what the palace had finally admitted. Charles had not called the walkout rebellion. He had not called it weakness. He had called it truth. That sentence gave the story its emotional resolution, because it confirmed what Catherine had known when she crossed that threshold. She had not damaged the monarchy by walking away from humiliation. She had reminded it that dignity must never be treated as a problem to manage. The Windsor Gala proved something final. The monarchy's future does not belong to the person who commands the room with arrival, timing, or control. It belongs to the person brave enough to walk out when the room demands silence. Catherine walked out of Windsor as a wounded woman, but she left behind a stronger future queen, and the palace knew it. Thanks for watching. Please don't forget to like and subscribe, and we will see you in next one.